Earlier today was the UFC 305 pre-fight press conference for Dricus Du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya, and it started off very uneventful. But the last 2 to 3 minutes, Dricus Du Plessis made Israel Adesanya start shedding tears live on stage. We're going to take a look at a couple different moments of back and forth between Dricus Du Plessis and Israel Adesanya. There was about 3 important moments that went on during this press conference. But I'll start off by saying something I said many months ago. I believe it was back in January of this year. And might be one of my best takes of all time. And I actually got a little bit of shit for it back then too. Dricus Du Plessis is the best trash talker in the UFC. Regardless if you disagree with some of the things that he says, regardless if you hate the whole real African narrative, which we will get into later in this video, and I think a lot of you guys aren't going to like it. I want to start off by saying Du Plessis, best trash talker in the UFC. And honestly, there is a chance, I don't know yet, but there is a chance that he mentally broke Israel Adesanya. And I say there's a chance because I do not know for sure yet. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Joey, you said it about Sean Strickland, and there are some parallels you can draw between him and Sean Strickland, but I think it's kind of a different situation. But we'll break that down in a little bit when we go through each and every clip. Now, real quickly, let's recap the press conference minus the big moments. First off, Dana White wasn't there. Dana White's too busy talking about Jon Jones trading cards on Instagram, not even in Australia. Too busy glazing Jon Jones. Jon Jones is the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. Jon Jones got a dark side to him. He's got 2 German Shepherds. He shoots guns. He smacks spray paint cans out of teenagers' hands who were out there vandalizing buildings. That's what Dana White's too busy doing, rather than showing up for the UFC 305 pre-fight press conference. Okay? It is what it is. John Anik was there. Couple other takeaways. Dricus Du Plessis got booed out of the building. Israel Adesanya got cheered pretty decently. So he was the fan favorite in this fight. People were kind of wondering that going in. And before we get to the clips, which I'm only going to show you clips between Dricus Du Plessis and Israel Adesanya, the rest of what happened. Dan Hooker, Mateusz Gamrot. Dan Hooker says, don't count me out in a fist fight. And, basically Gamrot says he's going to go out there and win. And your boy's going to go to sleep. So really nothing there, honestly. There was a title shot question about Gamrot getting a title shot and Dan Hooker getting a title shot. And they both kind of just said, Gamrot said something about he wants a title shot. Dan Hooker says, oh, I'm within the top 5. That's within striking distance. And then you have Tai, Taco Bell, Tuivasa, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. The one takeaway I did take from this, some questions between Jairzinho and Tai, there really wasn't much. The main focus was on DDP and Adesanya. They asked Jairzinho if he'd be willing to shoot takedowns in this fight. And Jairzinho starts to answer, well, it is MMA. Tuivasa screams, fuck no. Like trying to get a gentleman's agreement to let's stand and bang. Because we saw how bad Tai Tuivasa's grappling is. I can only assume that it has not improved. Jairzinho isn't known for his grappling. That's his weakness, but I think he would out-grapple Tai Tuivasa. Marcin Tybura absolutely mauled him, which was crazy. And then you have Kai Kara-France, Steve Erceg. They absolutely stole the show. Absolutely stole the show. No, I'm just kidding. They were just happy to be there, and they asked Kai about getting booed because Erceg is there, and Erceg, it's Erceg's kind of like hometown or whatever. And then the crowd cheers Kai Kara-France. It was kind of a dumb question. And then Erceg is apparently wearing his mouthpiece the entire time. I'm kidding, he wasn't, but it sounded like he was. And then you have Du Plessis Adesanya. Couple things, really not super important, but we'll go over them anyway. They asked DDP, are you going to make the fight ugly? And basically he said, I'm going to do what I do every fight. Really, I didn't take much away from that. They asked Adesanya, do you think DDP is going to try to make it ugly? And Adesanya said, well, Costa tried to make it look ugly, and look what I did to him, basically. They asked Du Plessis if he needed to be perfect for this fight, and he says, basically, I'm perfect every fight, and I'm going to do what I do every fight. And the one thing I'll talk about, and we see a little bit, I think we see a little bit in the clips we're going to take a look at, DDP and his mental warfare is amazing, but I also think he means this. he says, and he's breaking down Adesanya perfectly here. He says, look, Adesanya says his motivation is me. He's not motivated by the belt. He's not motivated by trying to be the best. He's motivated by me. He said, whether Adesanya is there on Saturday or not, I have the same motivation. And that is a great mindset. Like, I don't give a fuck who's standing across from me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's Israel Adesanya. Whether it's Adesanya, whether it's Marvin Vettori, whether it's Paulo Costa, I'm going to have the same intensity. I like that mindset. Meanwhile, you have Adesanya who is kind of trying to make it personal. It seems like he wants to be emotional going into this fight. Now, could that be an advantage or could it be a detriment to him? We'll only find out on Saturday night. The narrative will be written on Saturday night. And they asked Izzy about his celebration. And basically he says, I don't know what's going to happen on Saturday. I'm just focusing on going out there and putting on a good performance because I'm embarrassed by what I did against Sean Strickland. And kind of alludes, he hasn't, since 293, hasn't really made any excuses. He alludes to the fact that we all know already pretty much that he was injured going into that fight. He says, look, I was embarrassed of that performance. I'm going to come out here. I'm just focused on putting on a good performance. Whatever happens after, happens after. I'm telling you right now, he's not going to say it. He has a celebration planned. Now we get into basically where the clips start, okay? So the first clip that we're going to take a look at is when DDP is asked about a recent social media post where Adesanya posted 2 weigh-in photos. He didn't do it. He reposted like a fan who posted it. And basically, yeah, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Basically, Adesanya was saying that Dricus Du Plessis had a small dick. Essentially, that's what was being said. I'm not going to show you the meme. It's just weird. And to be quite honest, while I understand Adesanya is just like joking around and being kind of cringy like he typically is, I think anyone that goes out of their way to like brag typically, like, yeah, I got a massive cock. I think usually it's indicative of kind of insecurity about that. They want to make themselves feel better. Now, granted, I don't know if we can dig that deep with Adesanya. I think he just saw it, thought it was funny, reposted it of a fan. That's what I think happened there. But somebody asked Du Plessis about it, and that's what we're going to start with, Du Plessis' response. Listen to this.
About that now.
Yeah, the photo he got, I'm assuming it came from his For You page because it was me as a teenager. So searching naked teen boys, if that's on your search engine, man, you need to check that shit out.
You would think he was going against Sean Strickland here. He literally said that must have been on his For You page because he's searching naked teen boys. That sounds like something Sean Strickland would do most likely. But, I mean, this is mildly funny. I think this is a good, kind of joke for a press conference. And Du Plessis, don't get me wrong, Du Plessis in the couple lines that he did kind of throw out there in this press conference, I think it increased pay-per-view sales. I really did. I think this press conference actually helped promote the fight. The fight was kind of, I think a lot of people were burned out because of the recent kind of bullshit with the shitty cards with Tybura versus, I don't even, Spivak and that horrible card. And Du Plessis out here like, okay, here's my chance. Here's my chance. I'm basically going to call, Adesanya something I'm not even going to say here. And you can see Adesanya is a little flustered here.
That wasn't me. That was Mike. Somebody's mad. It must have been cold that morning. Don't worry about it.
The authorities that should be worried, not me, man.
So Adesanya or DDP says the authorities should be worried. Now, all the lines that DDP said in this press conference, for me, I'm not a 12-year-old boy, so I don't find them particularly funny, But I thought they were good, but they kind of fell flat on the crowd because the crowd was definitely pro Izzy versus Dricus Du Plessis. So they kind of fell flat regardless. The next quote we're going to take a look at was DDP was asked about the odds for the fight. I'm not going to show his response to that. He basically says the odds don't matter. But Adesanya was the favorite, and now it's closer to even. What do you think about that? Dricus gave some kind of long-winded answer about how it doesn't really matter. And then he said, oh, Adesanya, what are your thoughts on that? And then Adesanya just walks right into this joke that I know deep down all the little incel weirdos absolutely love this. I don't think it's particularly that funny, but at the end of the day, if it's getting in Izzy's head, which it could potentially, it can only help Dricus because it's definitely not getting in Dricus' head. But listen to this.
And to Izzy, do you have a response?
When did I become the underdog?
You know, it's a pick'em. It's very.
Nobody said anything about dogs, bro. Chill out.
I said that. Better shut the fuck up before I go get my coach's taser as well. Fucking tase your balls.
So there you go. He says nobody says anything about dogs. Listen, I know a lot of people are even probably going to comment on this video and say, yeah, Dricus is sick burn. If you are such a weirdo and you are so obsessed with fighters that you have to make up narratives about essentially sexual interactions with animals and take something that's not even, it's really, I mean, it's just a completely made up narrative. Okay, let's be real. And I've talked about this before, but it's just so dumb it's not worth mentioning. I understand why Dricus is doing it, but I'm talking about the fan base in general. You take a video of Israel Adesanya poking his dog. Okay, I'm not going to say any more than that. Cringy, weird. And then you twist that and contort that into Israel Adesanya is some type of sexual predator, all because you don't like him as a fighter. Look me dead in the eyes right now, because I know this is a lot of people. And I'm hoping maybe I can get to some of you guys, okay? You are a fucking weirdo. Now, I understand why Dricus is doing this, because at the end of the day, Dricus thinks getting in his opponent's head is worth it. It will help him on fight night. That remains to be seen in this case. I do believe it helped him against Sean Strickland. We'll talk about that in a second, because the next couple things that he says actually do get to Israel Adesanya. So, again, if you're making up, weird sexual fantasies about fighters because you don't like them, you are a complete and utter fucking weirdo. Okay, next clip we're going to take a look at. They ask Israel Adesanya, are you going to take the belt back to Africa? Do you plan on going back to Africa? Now, the person who asked the question here is from Nigeria. And while he's asking the question, he kind of takes a dig at Dricus. And you can tell Dricus, I have to think of the right word to describe Dricus, but you can tell, I don't know, he definitely took offense to this. He likes to gaslight enough and then try to act like it was nothing. And he keeps that no matter what. And deep down, he's so smart. He knows exactly what he's doing, but he has plausible deniability. But you can tell he takes offense to the question. He lets Izzy answer, and then he jumps in at the end. And this is where he essentially makes Israel Adesanya emotional.
Culturally, this has been made about culture. We didn't want to make it about culture, but, someone made it about culture.
Amen.
So here we are.
So you heard that was a dig at Dricus Du Plessis. This fight's about culture. We didn't make it about culture, but somebody made it about culture, aiming that at Dricus Du Plessis, which Du Plessis is now taking offense to, and he's going to fire back here in a second.
The question for you is, I grew up, my parents were in Nigeria. They obviously moved to a country as well to better themselves. When you win the belt again, do you plan on taking it back to Africa again?
On Tuesday, I'm going back to Nigeria. I think Friday, I'm going to South Africa. And then the next week, I'm going back to New Zealand. I am a child of the earth.
I wonder if he beats Dricus, what will be his kind of perception in South Africa if he does go to South Africa. I have no idea. I'm just curious.
I'm a child of the earth. And when I take this bet, I'm taking it everywhere with me.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
And then here's where DDP is ready to jump in because he's pissed about the way the guy phrased the question.
Question over here.
Are you taking the servants with you when you're going back? Are you taking the servants with you if you're going back?
What the fuck are you even on about?
My God. It's obviously a see and tell. We can see that. What do you mean? You're saying that I made it about
shut the fuck
culture?
up. You don't even know anything about my...
By the way, right there, that little 10 seconds right there, it almost seemed like Dricus was drunk. I don't know what that was, but he says, are you going to take the servants with you? And I feel like Izzy missed a golden opportunity here just to have a flatline comeback. But let's just watch that one more time. Because Dricus did this because he was pissed about the framing of the question. But let's watch it one more time.
With you when you're going back.
Oh, hold on. I didn't rewind it enough. So Izzy finishes answering the question and Dricus pops in.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Question over here.
Are you taking the servants with you when you're going back? Are you taking the servants with you if you're going back?
What the fuck are you even on about?
Izzy has no idea what to really say here. And then watch, I'm telling you, for the next 10 seconds, I don't know if it's the weight cut. I don't know if he was kind of gathering his thoughts. But Dricus almost seemed drunk here.
My God. It's obviously a see and tell. We can see that. What do you mean? You're saying that I
Bro,
made it
shut
about
the fuck
culture?
up. You don't even know anything about my story. You have no idea who the fuck
I don't
I am.
care about your story. I don't care about your story.
Listen, my father and my...
So he says, I don't care about your story. And I know I'm breaking this down. People, for some reason, love this stuff. Let me know. Do you guys like these press conference breakdowns? Because they're so easy to do, but like the drama portion of the sport is not like my favorite thing to cover at all. But first off, in this initial exchange, Izzy should have said, well, then why are you asking me about my travel plans if you don't care about my story? Why are you asking me about my travel plans? But that's not what he should, that's not where he really could have got him with like a flat line, one-liner, 10-7. I'll get to that in a second. But Izzy right here, when you find yourself in this situation in back and forth trash talk, explaining yourself way too much and your family's history, you've already lost at this point. You've already lost. Let's listen.
Myself had to wake up at 4 a.m. and clean the banks while my mom studies to be a nurse. You don't know my fucking story.
Amen.
Don't fucking speak of my story if you don't know my story.
I don't care.
I will
about
show
your
you who
story.
you are Sunday. So right now, shut the fuck up.
I can't wait.
In back by unless
I
you
can.
see.
You're talking about I made it about anything else.
You did.
Being
You
the
did.
first
Even you couldn't even
residing
respect the
African
people
champ.
of the land.
I am the
Walking in the
first.
So now he's talking about when Adesanya was doing some type of ritual. Dricus Du Plessis was like mean mugging him.
country. You were the
I
one
am.
not even doing anything. I took my shoes off to connect with the people, with the mob. What did you do? You stand there and try to mean mug me. Are you stupid?
My man.
I'm not your fucking man, bitch.
This is my...
First off, right there, he should have said, my man, I'm not your coach. Because that seems to kind of get on Dricus' nerves, but that's not what I'm talking about. Let's listen to more.
Oh shit. Just not that. You're gonna do what I did, take as the first residing African. That was
Sounds
exactly
silly.
it. You
sound
never
like a
change
fucking
that.
pig.
You can't change
I
that.
will slay you,
Impossible.
porky pig. Shut up, pink fit.
You can't change the facts, but you can't change those facts.
So Dricus goes on, I'm the first residing African. I've already covered this, and a lot of people get so annoyed about this. They get so annoyed about this. But Dricus is just gaslighting Israel Adesanya. He's done this from the very beginning. He says, I want to be the first real African champion, right? He said that. That's a direct quote. And then he puts a bunch of qualifiers on it. Lives, born, raised, makes out with his coach and trains and gets haircuts in Africa. So he adds all these qualifiers to make him the quote-unquote real African. And a lot of fans eat this shit up. And Dricus did this to get in Izzy's head to begin with and also try to fast-track his opportunity to a title shot. Now, ultimately, now he's the champion, but he's still riding out with it. But it's just a corny-ass narrative. And if we can go back real quick, if we can go back to the original line about, oh, you're going to take your servants with you, because I want to talk about this narrative a little bit, because I want to tell you first off what Izzy should have said right here.
With me.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Question over here.
Are you taking the servants with you when you're going back? Are you
So as soon as he said that, are you taking your servants with you when you go back? I would have said, are you mad that my parents paid for help? Meanwhile, your family forced people into slavery? That would have been easy for Izzy just to get right out of it. At least we paid for our help. What about your ancestors? And I'm not blaming Dricus for any of that. Because I know people are going to go down in the comments and be like, Joey, why are you holding Dricus responsible? It's not about that. They're trash talking back and forth. People are saying that, oh, Izzy had servants. Because apparently Izzy had a maid when he was young because his parents were busting their ass working to get out of poverty, okay? And you can say, okay, well, Joey, it's objectively true. Well, if Adesanya says, yeah, Dricus is the first African champion who lives, trains, resides, and also has ancestors who started the slave trade in South Africa, that would also be true. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing for Dricus. You can't hold him responsible for that. But it's just a dumb narrative. And you have people acting as if they know Israel Adesanya's entire life story. Yeah, he grew up and he had this and he had that. Like, in some of these countries where there's people who are so desperately poor, when you are just off the bottom level of poverty, there are people that have maids because You know, just for a different variety of reasons. You know, it's very normal, at least from my understanding, in some of these really poor countries to have people that come and help take care of your children. So his parents are out there busting their asses to get them out of Nigeria for a better opportunity. And Dricus is attacking it, which I understand why he's doing it, to get into his head. But it's just a stupid narrative by fans. And fans are latching onto this just because they don't like Israel Adesanya. You don't know what, you haven't seen his parents' tax returns. You don't know what their actual poverty level is. And people are hating on him because apparently his parents paid for help raising their children while they're busting their asses to save money to move out of Nigeria. Like, that is some gotcha. Now, ultimately, it was a gotcha to Israel Adesanya because he started crying afterwards. But at the end of the day, it's just a dumbass narrative. And people are just latching onto this like, yeah. I mean, and people are, what's annoying to me is I don't think Dricus is super malicious. I don't think Dricus is racist, but he's doing this shit intentionally to get under Adesanya's skin, which I understand completely. But then you have these weird fans who actually buy into and believe this shit. Dricus knows. Dricus is very smart. I know 100% he knows what he's doing, exactly what he's doing. And I just find it completely weird that people are like, yeah, Izzy said one time that, he had a maid or a servant or, they helped him, take care of him and bathe him. Acting like that means he was super wealthy and owned a mansion. He lived in Nigeria. And acting like him leaving Nigeria is something to be ashamed of. His family saving up the money and getting out of there is something to be ashamed of. And you could say, well, Izzy's family had it better than some. Who are you to judge someone's struggle when they were younger? You don't know them personally. You weren't there, okay? It's just bizarre. And I know people are going to say, you're just taking up for Izzy. No, it's not even about that. It's about just seeing these fans that are obsessed with these narratives. Now, let's get into the part where he starts crying, because he doesn't start crying or sobbing immediately after this exchange, but you can see it kind of got to him. He's telling Dricus just to shut up and don't talk about my story. And you can see, and this is a little bit after the end of the exchange, where he starts looking at his family in the crowd here. And this is where I think he starts to get emotional, where he just explained, I used to go to the bank and clean the bank, and people are like, oh, boo-hoo, you got to go to work. I mean, like, why are people so obsessed with his personal life? It's just a bizarre thing. But let's watch Izzy here. He's not really going to say much, but he's looking at his family. He starts to get emotional here.
Dubai, you going to get that win for Western Sydney or what, bro?
Western Sydney to Western Australia, baby. Let's go. Win.
You can see he started to get emotional there. And then I'm going to skip ahead about a minute or so, and you can really see, this is one of the last questions, and you can see where he starts really to be emotional here.
He touched the subject there, because I do this for my family. I do this for the people I love, and I'll fight for you forever. I swear to God. Watch this. I'm a fucking human being. I am a man. I can cry and whoop your ass at the same time. I feel the love from the crowd. First time I fought here, 2-2-1. That was February 2018. That was me making my dream come true. Sunday, I'm gonna fucking kill your dreams, bitch. I wanna fucking kill your dreams.
What a note to end things.
So there you go. There's Izzy wiping his eyes. He had a tear in his eye, a couple tears or something like that. This moment right here, okay? And I tweeted this out earlier. This moment right here, when he's kind of crying and then he wipes his eyes, right here, pinpointed right at this very second. This is an inflection point in Israel Adesanya's career. He's already achieved a lot. He's already one of the greatest middleweights of all time. But right here is a moment in his career that will either be legendary or memed forever. Because this may be the worst thing that ever happened to Israel Adesanya and the best thing that ever happened to Dricus Du Plessis, or it may be the opposite. It may be the best thing that ever happened to Israel Adesanya and the worst thing that happened to Dricus. Because if Israel uses this as motivation to go out there and know, I cannot lose. I have to be on my A game. I have to be locked in. I'm 100% healthy. I've done everything the right way. I have to go out there and get this done. I can't let this guy who made me cry at a press conference get it done against me. and beat me and essentially retire me in a way, because he's not getting another title shot after this. I mean, I guess he could, but it's highly unlikely for a long time. But if he goes out there and fights emotional, that's to DDP's advantage. DDP fights awkward. He's slugging big shots. He's looking for takedowns. Israel's about precision technique. So right here decides the narrative going forward. If Israel Adesanya goes out there and puts on the performance of a lifetime, crying Izzy is a new mythical fighter. If he goes out there, fights emotional, gets clipped and KO'd, it's like, oh, Dricus broke him mentally. And the last thing I want to look at, and we're going to talk more about this in a second, the last thing I want to look at is just something we saw from the last press conference. People were like, look how tall Dricus is, because he had his high heels on. Now this time they both have comparable shoes, and I just wanted to point this out. They both have comparable shoes, and you can see Izzy's like 3 to 4 inches taller now, even with the hair difference. You know, obviously Dricus has an inch of hair, Adesanya doesn't. Dricus decided to leave his high heels at home today, and you can see about 3 to 4 inches taller for Israel Adesanya. I just wanted to highlight that. So the last thing I want to highlight, okay, is a lot of people are saying, you know, Dricus made Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya cry, which is true. He made them both cry. Sean Strickland went on a podcast and sobbed and cried for a month. And then Adesanya shedded a couple tears at the press conference. I want to tell you why in the beginning of this video I said, look, he mentally broke Sean Strickland. I'm not sure that he did the same to Israel Adesanya. And the reason I say that is it may very well be true of Adesanya. I don't know yet. I really truly don't know. Maybe we'll know on Saturday. Sean Strickland press conference happened a month before the fight. Maybe a little bit longer than a month, actually. Sean cried for a full month, sobbed on a podcast, made himself look like a hypocrite, tried to cancel Dricus Du Plessis online, had his fans going after Dricus Du Plessis because of, you know, oh, Dricus Du Plessis attacked my childhood trauma. By the way, Dricus Du Plessis 2-0 with childhood trauma at this point. And then Sean Strickland messaged Dricus, begged him for mercy, apologized to him. And then the pre-fight press conference, the same press conference as this, Strickland came out and had nothing but positive things to say about Dricus. So I knew going into that fight, Sean Strickland was broken. And then on top of that, he then publicly threatened Dricus to act like he got Dricus to stop by threatening him. And then Dricus broke him even more because Dricus knew exactly what he was doing and came out and said, no, he messaged me and asked me, he begged me not to say that anymore and apologized to me. And then Sean wouldn't say anything negative about him in the pre-fight presser. So we knew Strickland was broke. Adesanya shedded a tear or two. We got emotional talking about his family. It's not a good look. It could end up costing him if he goes in there and fights emotionally. I don't believe he will. But at the end of the day, it's not the same as the Sean Strickland situation. But it is crazy that Dricus has this level of trash talk. He's not doing anything complicated. He's not doing anything that requires a lot of deep thought. And somehow he's breaking these guys. He's making them emotional and upset. Meanwhile, he's stoic. He does not give a fuck. So I do think that is super impressive of Dricus Du Plessis. But ultimately, will it pay off on Saturday? Only time will tell. Very interesting last 2 minutes of the press conference. I am very happy that this whole real African, fake African bullshit is only really being talked about 24 hours before the event. I thought this was going to be an ugly build-up. We really didn't talk about it until 24 hours out. You know, okay, maybe a month or two ago when the tickets went on sale, there was a little bit of discussion of it. We're kind of past it at this point. They're stepping in the cage in 24 hours. I'll be doing a live stream watch along of UFC 305 if you care to join me. Last thing I want to touch on, I always touch on in my presser reactions, is my prediction or my confidence in my prediction changing? I said after Bilal versus Leon press conference, I was super confident that Bilal was going to get it done. Going into this fight, I'm about 85 to 90% confident that Israel Adesanya gets it done. Okay, whether you agree or disagree with that, it's irrelevant. After watching this, maybe drops 10%, maybe drops 15%, because I am worried that Adesanya may go out there and be so desperate to get a statement win. If you make a mistake against Dricus and let him impose his physicality and let him find a shot, you're playing right into his game. So I think this press conference could have helped Dricus, but it also could have hurt him. Because remember, people said Conor was in Khabib's head. You know, we've heard that time and time before. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't. The story will be written in 24 hours. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.